How to cope with an avoidant partner. The very idea drips with contradiction. One side longs, almost desperately, for deeper intimacy, while the other stands poised, seemingly calm on the outside, but in truth, brimming with hidden fears. At times, they are so reticent you can barely see past the veil of their composure. What could be more confounding than trying to build love with someone always half a pace away? Now, it's easy to be frustrated by the avoidant partner who gives little reassurance, seldom initiates a phone call, and seems perfectly content with minimal closeness. Many of us may assume they are simply selfish or disinterested. Yet beneath that veneer of self-sufficiency, there often stands a more poignant explanation. They are frightened. Not of life, not of success, not even necessarily of you, but of being left unguarded in a realm that has brought them pain before. Indeed, the avoidant partner is rarely the stoic fortress they appear to be. Inside that high-walled citadel is a quivering heart convinced that letting someone in will bring betrayal or abandonment. Herein lies the subtle irony. You and I might look at their aloofness and call it cold. They do not see it that way. It's not indifference in their mind. It's self-preservation. To have grown up in an environment where they quietly absorbed lesson after lesson, trust no one fully, rely on yourself alone, breeds a personality that excels in distance. For them, drawing near is akin to stepping off a precipice into the unknown. They sense more risk than reward in your loving embrace. On the outside, they may appear dismissive, perhaps even ironically confident. Inside, they may be grappling with a private fear that they could be hurt once more, just as they once were. But how do we cope with such a partner? How do we tread carefully without tiptoeing on eggshells day in and day out? First, we might note that there are two equally dangerous routes to ruin. The first, pressing them relentlessly with your desire for closeness. Do you care about me? Why don't you ever tell me you love me first? Are you selfish? The more we badger, the more they retreat, like a tortoise tucking its head and limbs back in. Deeper still, if you come at them with complaints, calls for reassurance, or accusations of cruelty, you can be certain they will vanish faster than a fox in the undergrowth. The second route to ruin is to match their distance with your own emotional meltdown. In the swirl of insecurity, you may allow your anxiety to roar out. While that sometimes works with a partner who likes to hash matters out in the open, it only sows panic in someone avoidant. They do not interpret your intense vulnerability as an invitation to bond. Rather, they see a neon sign telling them, danger ahead, intrusion, blame, too much demand. It's no wonder they slip off on essential business trips or decide this relationship is too suffocating to endure. We do better, in the initial stages, to see the big picture. The person you love is not necessarily shrugging off your needs out of malice. They quite possibly do not know how to handle the swirl of affection, longing, and messy vulnerability. When confronted with emotional demands, their alarm bells clang. Their minds cycle back to times when trusting meant heartbreak, or when leaning on someone led to crushing disappointment. Look hard enough at their past, and you may discover a childhood shaped by letdowns, a father who vanished when they were small, a mother who offered warmth in unpredictable spurts, or seemed perpetually distracted by her own turmoil, or a caretaker who was physically present but emotionally absent, leaving your partner to learn independence as the only safe route. Thus, the more you clamor for closeness without acknowledging their hidden fears, the more they brace themselves, believing you threaten their fragile independence. So, one key skill to learn, an uncomfortable but powerful one, is to recognize what lurks beneath their fortress. Tell yourself, my partner isn't a statue of ice. They're someone who was once a child, taught to doubt the very notion of reliable care. Does that mean you cater to every whim of distance or isolation? Not at all. But it guides you to adopt empathy in your approach, rather than rage or accusation. Now, you might ask, what then should we do? Let's propose a few tactics. Give your partner the assurance that you won't chase them up the walls with your needs. However, respecting space does not mean you bury your own emotions indefinitely. You must find a balance where you can calmly share a worry, like, "I felt alone when we didn't speak for a week," while stating that you understand they may sometimes require solitude. If they sense you are not going to shame them for that impulse, they may open up, if only a crack at first. For avoidant people, closeness can feel claustrophobic. You can help by identifying small, incremental steps, rather than insisting on a sudden, tear-soaked confessional about their life's regrets. You might simply ask, "How was your day?" and listen without pressing for deeper, immediate revelations. Emotional intimacy for them grows when they realize they can share small pieces without you reacting in a dramatic or overbearing way. This is a cunning one, isn't it? For all their well-armored hearts, avoidant individuals can be quite moved when you translate emotional truths into the language of logic. You might explain how stress can corrode physical health, and how studies show that healthy relationships can lower cortisol and boost resilience. In other words, show them that trust and closeness are reasonable strategies for well-being, not traps. If they see you as a partner seeking a mutual advantage, rather than a threat, they may inch toward deeper bonding. Suppose they vanish for a few days after a small conflict. Instead of lashing out with, "You're so selfish," consider, "I sense that when arguments arise, you protect yourself by getting space. But I want to reassure you I'm not here to attack you. I'd like us to solve this gently together." That transforms a battle of accusations into a conversation about their primal fear of conflict. They might still feel uneasy, but you're inviting them to see a path that's not marked by blame or meltdown. Coping with an avoidant partner does not grant them unlimited license to vanish at every turn, leaving you in agony. While you show empathy, you also clarify that the relationship must nurture both people. If you tolerate zero communication for weeks on end, you teach them that you'll accept any level of emotional unavailability, ultimately destroying your own peace. So, if silent absences are slicing your heart, you need to state, calmly but firmly, what you can and cannot handle. "I understand you need space occasionally, but I also need basic consistency, like a text or two per week, so I don't feel abandoned." If they can't respect that, the problem is not just avoidance, but a fundamental disregard for your well-being. But let us not ignore your own side in this. There's a sly possibility that you, the one complaining about their distance, harbor your own hidden discomfort with closeness. Could it be that by choosing an avoidant partner, you have sidestepped your own vulnerability? You may proclaim, "I want intimacy," while selecting someone who cannot give it easily. This dynamic cleverly allows you to keep pining for closeness without ever actually having to face your own fears of being truly known. This notion can sting, yet it's worth asking if your heartbreak is partly self-inflicted. Are you, as they say, more comfortable wanting than having? If that resonates, be gentle with yourself. Humans are complex. Rarely do we do these things maliciously, but perhaps it's time for both of you, avoidant and anxious, to realize there are mutual terrors about leaning too heavily on one another. The avoidant partner, outwardly tough, is terrified of letting anyone too near. The anxious partner, seemingly desperate for affection, is equally afraid that real vulnerability might reveal flaws or invite rejection. When recognized, this symmetrical fear can become a point of empathy rather than endless conflict. It's not, "You're too distant, I'm too clingy." It's, "We're both afraid, just in different flavors." A final thought. Coping with an avoidant partner requires patience, yes, but it also requires honest self-examination. If you can calmly, consistently affirm that you do care, that you won't sabotage them for wanting a bit of personal space, and that you won't punish them with guilt trips when they tentatively move closer, then you offer the healing environment they've likely never had. And if you see them begin to open, share a piece of their story, or allow a fraction of their sorrow into the light, treasure that gesture. Do not pounce with, "Finally, you see things my way." Instead, treat it like a rare seedling. Water gently. Nurture it. Give it time to flourish. Still, if despite all empathy and patience, your partner remains endlessly locked behind those walls, unwilling to reciprocate even a little bit, you must ask what best serves your own emotional health. Love can be an extraordinary force of compassion, but it should not be a prison of perpetual sacrifice. The right balance, a gentle mutual risk, remains the key. If they can't or won't undertake that journey with you, you'll have decisions to make. In the best scenario, that first glimmer of trust can widen into a genuine bond. For both you and your partner, once fear relaxes its grip, intimacy no longer looms as a peril, but a source of steady, reliable warmth. For the avoidant soul, it's a revelatory experience. They discover a new lease on life, brimming with deeper connection and shared growth. And for you, there's the reward of fulfilling closeness, finally unshadowed by endless guesswork and worry. Thus, we circle back to our initial question: how to cope with an avoidant partner? The answer, I suppose, is woven of curiosity, gentleness, empathy, and boundaries. Enough boundaries to keep your own heart from foundering, and enough empathy to coax them out of their fortress. No small feat, one might say. But if you manage it, if you offer compassion without martyring yourself, and if your partner shows the courage, yes, courage, to lean in your direction, the union you build could be a marvel of quiet understanding. And isn't that a worthwhile pursuit for two people who, underneath all these labels, simply yearn to love and be loved without fear?
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.